Hello everybody. Sorry I can't be there today. Of course, volleyball games are on Tuesdays all the time. But I'll be doing my lesson on this video. So, yeah, let's get started. Today in class, we are going to be introducing what questions are and how they can be used effectively. Questions are what we use to find out new things, like why is the sky blue, or how do birds fly. In this lesson, you'll learn how to ask different types of questions and why asking questions help you learn more about the world around you. By the end, you'll be ready to ask amazing questions to discover all the things you are unsure of. We are going to be watching a video, but before it's watched, I'm going to ask you a few questions. Just pause the video and answer if you have an idea of how to answer it. Does anyone know how they can explain what a question is? What are some questions you guys can come up with using this classroom as your topic? Once you come up with your answer, talk to your classmates about it, and then we'll share as a class. Why do we think questions are important? For this, my answer is questions are important because it keeps conversations going and can keep people engaged on what is being talked about. Without questions, you wouldn't learn what you don't know. Now we will be watching some videos to get a more in-depth understanding and examples of questions that are being pulled out of readings. These questions are helping show understanding and fully explain so viewers can use these skills in the future.
Hi friends, my name is Erica and welcome to the USA Test Prep classroom. Today, we are going to learn about asking and answering questions about stories. We can ask questions about stories before we read, after we read, and while we are reading. We ask questions to help us understand the story. We can use the text in the story to help us find our answers. We can use question words to help us ask questions. Question words are words that help us start a question. These words are who, what, when, where, why, and how. Now that we know a little bit about asking and answering questions, let's go to the computer lab to read a story on the computer. We are at the computer lab. Listen to this cool story. Once there was a boy who loved to play soccer. He would practice with his soccer ball every day. The day finally came where he put on his uniform, grabbed his ball, and headed for the fields. The crowd was shouting his name as he kicked the ball towards the net. What a great story! Let's ask some questions about it and see if we can find some answers. Who was in the story? That's right, a boy. We can go back in our story and read the first sentence to discover who was in the story. Once there was a boy. What did the boy love to play? He loved to play soccer. In our text, it says, once there was a boy who loved to play soccer. How much did he practice playing soccer? That's right, every day. He practiced soccer every day. We can use our text to help us answer this question. He would practice with his soccer ball every day. Where was he when the crowd was shouting his name? That's right, he was on the soccer field. In our text, it says, the day finally came where he put on his uniform, grabbed his ball, and headed for the fields. What do you think will happen next? That's a great possibility. I think he might score a goal. How neat! let's head back to the classroom. I had a great time learning about asking and answering questions with you today. Remember that you can use question words to ask questions before, during, or after reading. You can look at the text to find the answers to those questions. See you next time.
So questions are meant to keep people engaged and become educated on things that are unknown to them. Questions being asked after a reading is important because it helps see if a student comprehended what was in front of them. Asking simple questions helps pick up little things that could have been missed or not understood. Next, we will be doing an interactive worksheet to go along with question asking. This next worksheet is a fill-in-the-blank worksheet. You will fill in the blank space with whatever word below you think best fits. Do this individually, and we will go over them as a class. Each fill-in-the-blank is either a why, what, where, when, who, how. So, yeah, come back when you are finished. While doing this worksheet, make sure your answers are written down so we can go over it after you are finished. Since this worksheet will be online and you don't have it physically, please take out a piece of paper and a pencil or a pen and number your paper 1 through 12. Number 1. Blank is he. He is at the cinema. What do we think the answer is? The answer is where. Number 2. Blank is he sad? Because he is ill. What do we think number 2 is? Number 2 is why. Why is he sad? Because he is ill. Number 3. Blank is that? It is a present. Number 3 would be, what is that? It is a present. Number 4. Blank is the exam. It is next week. When is the exam? It is next week. Now we are on number 5. Blank is that? It is a mouse. What is that? It is a mouse. Number 6. Blank is he happy? Because he got a new car. Why is he happy? Because he got a new car. Blank is she? She is my sister. Who is she? She is my sister. Number 8. Blank is your birthday. Tomorrow. When is your birthday? Tomorrow. Number 9. Blank is Jack. He is in bed. Where is Jack? He is in bed. Number 10. Blank makes breakfast. My grandmother. Who makes breakfast? My grandmother. Number 11. Blank, did you buy a lot of things? What did you buy? A lot of things. Number 12. Blank is crying. My dad and my brother. Who is crying? My dad and my brother. Now that we are done, score yourself and write at the top of your paper what your score is, and the teacher will collect it. For the next part of the lesson, we will just be doing a basic lesson of going over what questions exactly are. What is a question? Here are some definitions that were found on the internet. A sentence worded or expressed so as to information. Ask questions of someone, especially in official context. A question is asked to find out more information. Some example sentences are, did you know that elephants can sense storms? What other animals can sense storms? How can elephants sense storms? How do we know elephants can sense storms? Those are all examples of questions. Let's practice. Here are some things you can ask about a specific topic. For example, about volleyball, you can ask how long a volleyball game is. School, what do you do when you go to school? Sleep, how much sleep should you be getting? Emotions, why do people feel emotions differently? This next activity, you'll be going through each number and determining which of them are questions and which are not. So number 1, what time is it? Number 2, it is sunny out. Number 3, my name is Alyssa. Number 4, how old are you? Number 5, we are friends. Come back once you have all of them answered for the answers. Here are the answers. Number 1 is yes. Number 2 is no. Number 3 is no. Number 4 is yes. Number 5 is no. Here's some more practice to do with the class. What questions can you ask about this picture? Come up with questions, then come back when you are done. Here is a wrap-up on questions. There are questions you can ask about almost everything. Questions should be asked to be able to stay engaged and fully understand what is in front of you. Now that the lesson is over, in this next video, the topic of questions is more broken down with fictional stories to go along with it.
It is Miss Oates, and today we're going to be going over asking and answering questions in a fiction story. So by the end of this video, you are going to be able to show understanding of a text by asking and answering questions. You're also going to be able to refer to key details to support answers to a question formulated about the text. And our key standard is RL 2.1, ask and answer questions such as who, what, when, where, why, and how to demonstrate an understanding of key details in a text. So let's start by talking about what it means to be asking questions. We ask questions to help us understand. So in school, for example, you ask questions to your teacher all the time about something that maybe you don't know. We can also ask questions as we're reading a book or a short story. We ask questions before, during, and after when we read a text. And some of our question words include who, that's usually referring to the person, what, when, that's the time or the date, where would be the location the story takes place, why, because is a big way to answer a why question, and how, such as how much, how big, how can, how often, and how many. Why and how are often our thick questions. Those thick questions are the questions that require a little bit more thinking. Who, what, when, and where are usually questions that we call thin questions. Those are questions that I can look directly into a text and I can understand them. So how do we answer the question? Well, we use the text to find our answers. And when we use the text to find our answer, we are looking for key details. Key details are an important fact, example, or other piece of information in our text that helps explain the main idea. So think of those light bulb moments, those really big moments that happen in the story. Those are your key details. So let's go ahead and practice. I have this story that I love to read called Ben's Baseball Game. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how I use key details to answer some questions. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I am going to look at the questions that I need to be answering when I read the story. So who is the story mostly about? What makes Ben feel nervous? Why should Ben not have worried at all? And then when would Ben play baseball? So these 4 questions I need to answer. My teacher's asking me to answer these 4 questions about this text, Ben's Baseball Game. So now that I've read the questions, I'm going to go ahead and read the story. Follow along as I read. Ben's Baseball Game. Ben was a great baseball player. He played every day at the baseball field right after school. He loved to play with his friends before he went home. Once he got home, he had a lot of homework to do. So Ben stopped by the baseball fields to play. During today's game, Ben saw a few 5th graders come onto the field. This made Ben feel nervous. They asked him and his friends if they could play baseball too. Ben was scared because they were so tall, but the 5th graders were actually very nice to him. So obviously, Ben loves to play baseball, and he loves to play it after school every single day. And then these 5th graders came up and he's got scared, but really the 5th graders were asking him to play baseball with them. So now I'm ready to answer my questions. And again, I'm going to be using these key details. So who is this story mostly about? That's pretty easy. The story is about Ben. Not only is Ben in the title of the story, but he's also our main character. He's the very first word that I read. Ben was a great baseball player, and his name is also repeated throughout the story as well. So what makes Ben feel nervous? You know, I remember towards the middle of the story, it was those 5th graders being on the baseball field that made Ben feel nervous, which is exactly the answer. And again, I can refer back to this part of the sentence. 5th graders came onto the field. And then the very next sentence says, this made Ben feel nervous. So sometimes when you're answering a question in a story, you have to not only look at one particular sentence, you may have to look at 1 or 2 sentences to find the direct answer. If you also notice too, nervous is in the question, nervous is also in the story. That key detail right there tells me that's where I'm going to find my answer. So why should Ben not have been worried at all? Well, remember in the story, it was the 5th graders who were asking Ben to play with him because he was such a great baseball player. Again, when I refer back to the story, at the very end, they referring to the 5th graders, ask him and his friends if they could play baseball too. And that ended up making Ben really, really excited. And then I want to know, when would Ben play baseball? Well, way back at the beginning of the story, it would tell me that Ben would play baseball after school.
Now that this whole lesson is over, if the students have any more questions, they can discuss with their table partners and then come back to share as a class. Thank you for listening. Bye. Now that this whole lesson is over, if the students have any more questions, they can discuss with their table partners and then come back to share as a class. Thank you for listening. Bye.